settle into the sleepy mind channel. Tonight, we will explore one of the quietest and most invisible systems in nature. All around us, plants are releasing tiny chemical compounds into the air. Lavender drifting through a warm garden, jasmine opening into the evening air, pine forests carrying scent after rain, and fresh herbs releasing fragrance when touched, all begin with molecules drifting away. Most people experience fragrance as something emotional or relaxing, but behind every scent is a system of chemistry, biology, temperature, air movement, and survival. For thousands of years, before modern science understood molecules or chemical compounds, humans were already connected to scent. Ancient civilizations burned fragrant woods during ceremonies, stored flowers inside homes, pressed oils from plants, and carried herbs across deserts and oceans because fragrance changed how places felt. A single scent could calm the mind, mark an important moment, or instantly remind someone of a distant memory. Even now, the smell of lavender beside a quiet evening window or rosemary drifting from a garden can create an almost immediate sense of familiarity and calm. Yet few people stop to consider what fragrance is, how plants create it, or why these invisible compounds exist in the first place. Tonight, we will explore the chemistry of fragrance from the inside out. We will look at how plants create scent through specialized chemical compounds, how fragrance travels through the air, how insects respond to these signals, how flowers release different scents during day or night, and how plants use chemistry for survival, communication, protection, and reproduction. We will also explore how the human brain detects scent, why fragrance feels connected to memory, and how temperature, humidity, sunlight, and surroundings shape the invisible world of aroma surrounding us every day. If you enjoy videos like these, feel free to like and subscribe. More videos are posted every week. You can also explore the channel playlists for a range of relaxing science, history, nature, and deep time topics designed for long overnight listening sessions. Scent begins with chemistry inside plant tissue. Deep within flowers, leaves, stems, roots, and tiny surface glands, plants produce specialized compounds that eventually escape into the air. These compounds are not created randomly. Each one is produced through organized biological work, powered by energy from sunlight. Plants absorb light during photosynthesis, convert that energy into usable chemical energy, and then use part of those resources to create fragrance compounds that serve specific purposes in nature. Many of these compounds belong to a group known as volatile molecules. The word volatile means that the compounds evaporate easily into the air. This property allows fragrance to travel away from the plant. Fragrance behaves almost like smoke from a candle drifting through a still room. Once released, scent molecules move outward into the air where airflow, warmth, humidity, and concentration determine how far the fragrance can spread. Temperature plays an important role in this process. On warm evenings, scent often becomes more noticeable because heat increases molecular movement. The compounds evaporate efficiently and enter air more rapidly. This is why lavender fields often smell stronger beneath afternoon sunlight than during colder morning hours. The same principle explains why herbs release stronger fragrance when rubbed between warm fingers. Heat increases movement, and increased movement allows more molecules to reach the air surrounding the plant. Air becomes part of the system. Tiny fragrance molecules drift through invisible currents, moving across gardens, forests, fields, and coastlines. Even a gentle breeze can carry scent across surprising distances. A flowering plant growing beside a quiet pathway may release molecules that travel far beyond the plant before finally reaching the nose of a passing insect, animal, or person. Surrounding air becomes a transportation system for chemistry that no living creature can see. Each plant creates different chemical profiles. Lavender produces compounds associated with soft herbal sweetness, while jasmine releases richer floral compounds that become noticeable during evening hours. Pine trees produce resin-based aromas that feel crisp and cool, while citrus plants release brighter compounds that feel sharp and refreshing. Each plant species combines different molecules in different amounts, creating distinctive fragrances that function almost like chemical signatures. The complexity behind these scents is large. A single flower may release dozens or even hundreds of different compounds together. Some dominate the fragrance immediately, while others remain subtle beneath the surface. Perfumers sometimes compare fragrance to music because individual compounds combine in layers, much like instruments inside an orchestra. One compound may create sweetness, while another creates freshness, spice, softness, sharpness, or depth. Together, they create the complete scent experience recognized by insects, animals, and humans. For plants, however, fragrance is not created to smell pleasant. Scent exists because it provides biological advantages. Many flowers release fragrance specifically to attract pollinators, such as bees, moths, butterflies, and beetles. These insects respond to chemical signals drifting through the air, much the way humans respond to visible signs or familiar voices. Fragrance guides pollinators toward flowers containing nectar and pollen, allowing plants to reproduce more successfully. Some flowers release stronger fragrance during daylight because bees are active during the day. Others release scent primarily at night because moths become active after sunset. Jasmine provides a famous example of this timing system. Its fragrance often grows stronger during evening hours because the plant evolved alongside nighttime pollinators. The flower is not producing scent randomly. It is releasing chemical signals at the exact time they are most useful. Plants can also use scent for protection. Certain compounds repel insects or discourage animals from eating leaves and stems. Since plants cannot move away from danger, chemistry becomes one of their primary forms of defense. Mint, rosemary, eucalyptus, and many herbs contain strong fragrance compounds that make them less appealing to some herbivores and insects. Deep inside every fragrant plant, many chemical reactions are taking place throughout the day. Leaves absorb sunlight, while roots draw water and nutrients upward through stems and branches. Inside plants, energy moves through living tissues, where cells build, transform, store, and release chemical compounds. Among these compounds are the aromatic molecules responsible for fragrance. Though invisible to the human eye, these molecules are moving into the air, where they begin long journeys through gardens, forests, fields, coastlines, and air. Many fragrance compounds belong to a category known as volatile organic compounds. The word volatile may sound dramatic, but in chemistry, it describes compounds that evaporate easily at ordinary temperatures. This ability to evaporate is what allows scent to leave the surface of a flower or leaf and move freely into the air. Without volatility, fragrance would remain trapped within plant tissue, and the air would carry almost no natural aroma at all. A useful comparison is the steam rising from a warm cup of tea. When the tea is hot, molecules carrying scent and flavor escape upward into the air, where they can be detected immediately. Flowers warmed by sunlight release fragrance compounds into the air, while herbs, trees, grasses, and shrubs release their own chemical signatures around them. Different compounds evaporate at different speeds. Some fragrance molecules are extremely light and move quickly into the air, creating scents that feel bright, fresh, or immediate. Others evaporate more slowly and remain noticeable for longer periods. This difference affects how fragrance is experienced over time. A citrus peel may release sharp, energetic scent almost instantly, while woody or resin-based aromas linger gradually in the background. Perfumers often organize fragrances according to this behavior because evaporation speed changes the order in which scents are perceived. Temperature affects nearly every part of this process. Warmth increases molecular movement within plant tissue and also increases movement in the air. On hot afternoons, fragrance compounds escape more rapidly from flowers and leaves because heat provides additional energy to the molecules themselves. This helps explain why gardens often smell strongest during warm weather. Sunlight does not illuminate a flower. It actively influences the chemistry and movement of fragrance. Humidity also changes how scent behaves. In dry air, molecules may disperse rapidly and spread farther from their source. In humid conditions, moisture in the air can slow movement slightly, while also making fragrance feel denser and softer. Many people notice this effect during summer evenings, when floral scents seem to settle into still air rather than disappearing quickly into the distance. Humidity alters not only the movement of fragrance, but also how the human nose experiences concentration and intensity. Air currents play an equally important role. Fragrance rarely moves in perfect straight lines. Instead, scent molecules drift through shifting patterns of air. A breeze crossing a lavender field may carry fragrance across nearby hillsides, while still pockets of air beneath trees can allow scent to gather in concentrated layers. Wind direction, obstacles, vegetation, moisture, sunlight, and landscape all influence how fragrance spreads through the air. This movement can become complex. A single flowering plant may release thousands upon thousands of scent molecules each second, yet only a tiny portion will ever reach a pollinating insect or human nose. Most continue drifting away through the air where they mix with other compounds released from soil, leaves, trees, flowers, grass, water, and microorganisms. Every natural environment contains its own changing chemical atmosphere created by living organisms interacting with air and climate. Forests provide an excellent example of this hidden complexity. Pine forests often feel fresh and cool because conifer trees release fragrance compounds into the air throughout the day. Some of these compounds belong to a group called terpenes, which are common in many fragrant plants. Pine needles, bark, and resin all contribute to the forest atmosphere by releasing these volatile molecules slowly over time. During warm weather, the concentration may become noticeable as sunlight increases evaporation. Lavender relies on similar chemistry, but produces a different sensory experience. The fragrance of lavender comes largely from compounds such as linalool and linallyl acetate, which combine to create the soft herbal aroma many people associate with calm evenings, soap, candles, or essential oils. These compounds evaporate efficiently in heated air and spread easily through gardens or open windows. Even crushing a lavender flower between fingers increases release, because physical pressure breaks small oil holding parts inside the plant tissue. Many herbs behave the same way. Rosemary, basil, thyme, mint, and sage all contain aromatic oils stored within specialized cells or tiny surface glands. Rubbing the leaves releases these compounds into the air immediately. This sudden increase in fragrance happens because the protective plant tissue holding the oils has been disturbed. The compounds escape rapidly once exposed to air. Some plants release fragrance, while others adjust production according to conditions. Temperature, sunlight, water supply, nutrient availability, stress, and developmental stage can all influence scent production. A flower nearing full maturity may release stronger fragrance than a newly opened bloom because attracting pollinators becomes important during reproduction. Conditions shape how much scent enters the air and when release becomes most intense. Even time of day matters. Certain flowers produce fragrance most strongly during morning hours, while others become more aromatic after sunset. Night-blooming jasmine offers one of the clearest examples. During daylight hours, its scent may remain subtle, yet after evening arrives, the fragrance grows much stronger because nighttime pollinators become active. The plant responds by increasing release during the exact period when scent is biologically useful. Within fragrant plants, essential oils are stored like hidden reservoirs spread throughout leaves, petals, stems, bark, roots, and flowers. These oils contain concentrated mixtures of fragrance compounds produced through complex biological work taking place inside living cells. Though often associated with perfumes, candles, or herbal products, essential oils originally evolved for the needs of the plants themselves. Long before humans learned how to extract or bottle them, plants were already producing these compounds as part of survival, communication, protection, and reproduction within natural ecosystems. The term essential oil can sound mysterious, yet the idea behind it is fairly simple. Essential oils are concentrated mixtures of fragrance compounds that carry the recognizable fragrance of a plant. When someone smells lavender, peppermint, rosemary, eucalyptus, pine, lemon, jasmine, or rose, they are detecting the fragrance compounds released from these oils into the air. Each oil contains its own combination of molecules, and even small changes in composition can alter the fragrance noticeably. Plants produce these compounds inside specialized cells and small storage systems built specifically for fragrance production. Some plants store oils inside tiny glands on the surface of leaves or petals, while others keep them deeper inside internal tissues. In citrus fruits, aromatic oils are stored inside small pockets within the peel. Pressing or twisting the peel breaks these structures and releases fragrance immediately into the air. This is why a fresh orange or lemon can suddenly fill an entire room with scent after being cut open. Lavender offers one of the clearest examples of how specialized plant chemistry creates recognizable fragrance. Across lavender flowers and stems are many tiny oil-producing glands, too small to notice without magnification. These glands produce fragrance compounds during growth and flowering. Warm sunlight increases evaporation, allowing fragrance molecules to drift outward into the air. Entire lavender fields can become fragrant because millions of tiny glands are releasing fragrance compounds together. Much of lavender's familiar aroma comes from compounds such as linalool and linaloyl acetate. Together they create the soft floral herbal fragrance associated with calm evenings, gardens, linen, and relaxation. Yet lavender fragrance is not produced by only one compound alone. Many additional molecules contribute subtle layers beneath the surface. Some provide sweetness, while others create freshness, dryness, softness, or slightly woody notes. The complete scent emerges from the interaction of all these compounds together. Jasmine follows a different chemical path entirely. Its fragrance is richer, deeper, and more concentrated because jasmine flowers produce a different combination of fragrance compounds. Some jasmine compounds become especially active during evening hours when nighttime pollinators begin searching for flowers. As darkness approaches, the fragrance intensifies and drifts farther into the air. A single jasmine vine growing beside an open window can fill large areas with scent during warm nights because the plant is releasing compounds at precisely the right time for pollinator activity. The chemistry behind jasmine is complex. Researchers have identified dozens of fragrance compounds contributing to its fragrance profile. Some create sweetness, while others create warm floral depth or slightly fruity notes. Tiny changes in concentration can alter how the fragrance feels to the human nose. This complexity explains why natural jasmine fragrance often feels layered and difficult to describe fully with simple words. Roses provide another example of chemical diversity within plants. Different rose species can smell dramatically different from one another because each produces different mixtures of aromatic molecules. Some roses smell bright and fresh, while others feel deeper, softer, sweeter, or more citrus-like. Soil quality, temperature, sunlight, humidity, plant maturity, and seasonal conditions all influence the balance of compounds released during flowering. Mint plants produce fragrance through another group of fragrance compounds entirely. Menthol creates the cooling sensation associated with peppermint because the compound interacts with temperature-sensitive receptors in the human body. Even though the air has not become colder, menthol activates sensory systems linked with coolness. This creates the unusual experience of a scent that seems physically refreshing rather than fragrant. Eucalyptus produces a similar effect through compounds that feel crisp and sharp in the air. Pine forests create freshness through resin-based compounds drifting from bark, needles, and sap. Basil releases sweet herbal fragrance, while rosemary combines woody and herbal notes together into a more concentrated aroma. Each plant species creates its own chemical identity through specific combinations of volatile molecules. The diversity of fragrance across the plant kingdom is large because plants evolved under different environmental pressures across different climates and ecosystems. Desert plants often produce strong oils that reduce water loss or discourage animals from eating valuable tissues. Tropical flowers may produce intense fragrance to attract pollinators across dense vegetation where visibility remains limited. Forest plants growing beneath heavy tree cover sometimes rely more heavily on scent because pollinators cannot depend entirely on visual signals in darker environments. Even closely related plants can produce noticeably different fragrances because small changes in chemistry alter how compounds interact with human senses. Two varieties of lavender growing side by side may smell slightly different depending on climate, soil, genetics, rainfall, or temperature. The same plant species grown in different regions can develop altered fragrance profiles because conditions influence oil production throughout growth. This variation is one reason fragrance feels so connected to place and memory. A rosemary plant growing beside the ocean may smell slightly different from rosemary growing inland beneath dry heat. Pine forests in colder mountain the air create different scent experiences than pine forests growing in humid coastal climates. Plants can also manage fragrance carefully rather than releasing oils without limit. Producing fragrance compounds requires energy, nutrients, water, and metabolic activity. Since plants depend on sunlight for energy production, fragrance output often changes according to available light and conditions. During drought, extreme heat, poor soil conditions, or stress, scent production may increase, decrease, or shift chemically depending on the needs of the plant. Some plants release stronger fragrance only when disturbed physically. Crushing mint leaves between fingers breaks oil-holding parts and suddenly exposes concentrated fragrance compounds to air. Freshly cut grass behaves similarly. The recognizable smell released after mowing a lawn comes partly from compounds entering air after plant tissues have been damaged. In nature, these compounds may serve as warning signals or defensive responses connected to injury and stress. One of the most remarkable things about fragrance is that even the smallest changes in chemistry can completely transform how a plant smells. A tiny increase in one compound or a slight reduction in another may turn a scent from fresh and bright into something deeper, sweeter, sharper, softer, or more herbal. To the human nose, fragrance often feels smooth and unified, yet beneath that experience exists a complex mixture of molecules interacting together. A useful comparison is cooking. Flour, butter, sugar, herbs, spices, oils, fruit, and heat can combine into thousands of different flavors depending on proportion and preparation. Fragrance works in a similar way. Plants use many of the same basic chemical building blocks repeatedly across nature, yet different mixtures create wide diversity. A slight shift in balance may completely change the final aroma entering air. That is why lavender smells different from rosemary, even though both contain certain overlapping compounds. It is also why two flowers from the same family may smell only vaguely related, despite sharing similar biological origins. The final fragrance depends not only on which molecules are present, but also on their concentration, timing, interaction, evaporation speed, and conditions surrounding the plant. Scientists studying fragrance sometimes compare fragrance compounds to musical notes. A single note played alone may sound simple, yet many notes layered together create depth, harmony, texture, and emotional tone. Fragrance behaves much the same way. Certain compounds dominate immediately, while others remain hidden beneath the surface until the scent settles in the air. Some compounds evaporate quickly, while others linger gradually in the background. The full fragrance emerges through layers unfolding over time. Citrus fruits provide a clear example of this layered chemistry. The bright, sharp scent released from an orange peel comes from compounds that evaporate rapidly into the air. These lighter molecules reach the nose quickly and create immediate freshness. Beneath them, however, exist additional compounds contributing sweetness, softness, bitterness, or warmth. The complete fragrance of citrus emerges from all these layers interacting together, rather than from one single molecule alone. Rose fragrance operates with even greater complexity. Different rose species may contain dozens or even hundreds of fragrance compounds working simultaneously. Some produce soft floral sweetness, while others contribute spice, fruit-like brightness, green freshness, or deeper woody undertones. This combination creates the rich layered aroma associated with roses throughout history. Remove even a few compounds from the mixture, and the fragrance may begin feeling flat or incomplete. The same principle explains why synthetic fragrance often feels different from naturally occurring scent. A laboratory may reproduce one dominant compound successfully, yet natural fragrance usually contains smaller supporting compounds, adding complexity and balance. Human senses are sensitive to these subtle differences, even when people cannot describe them consciously. Weather shapes these chemical mixtures as well. Temperature influences evaporation speed, while humidity affects movement through the air. Soil quality changes nutrient availability inside the plant. Water supply influences growth and metabolism. Sunlight affects energy production through photosynthesis. Together, these factors alter how much fragrance a plant produces and which compounds become most noticeable. This helps explain why flowers growing in different regions may smell slightly different despite belonging to the same species. Lavender. Growing in dry mountain, the air may produce fragrance that feels sharper or cleaner than lavender growing in humid coastal conditions. Roses grown beneath intense sunlight can develop different aromatic balance compared to roses grown in cooler climates. The chemistry remains connected to the environment surrounding the plant. Plant maturity also changes fragrance. Young flowers may release relatively little scent, while mature blossoms often produce much stronger aroma, because attracting pollinators becomes important during reproduction. As flowers age further, fragrance may weaken or change again as biological priorities shift inside the plant. The scent released outward reflects a changing chemical condition rather than a fixed, unchanging formula. Time of day influences these mixtures too. Some compounds become more noticeable during warm afternoon temperatures, while others dominate during cool evening air. Jasmine famously increases fragrance after sunset because nighttime pollinators rely heavily on scent. Certain desert flowers release stronger fragrance during cooler nighttime hours because moisture loss becomes less dangerous after the heat of the day fades. Even air movement changes perception. A still garden allows fragrance to gather around flowers, while stronger wind spreads molecules outward more quickly. In calm evening air, floral scents may seem richer because concentration remains higher near the source. During windy afternoons, the same garden may smell much lighter, despite plants releasing similar compounds. Human perception adds another layer of complexity. Different people experience fragrance differently because sensitivity varies between individuals. One person may notice sweetness immediately, while another detects herbal sharpness more strongly. Some people identify floral notes easily, while others respond more strongly to woody, citrus, or resin-based compounds. Human scent perception depends partly on biology, previous experiences, memory, environment, and even emotional association. This connection between fragrance and memory often feels powerful. A familiar scent can immediately recall places, seasons, people, homes, gardens, holidays, forests, or moments from many years earlier. Scientists believe this occurs because smell processing remains closely connected with regions of the brain associated with emotion and memory. Unlike sight or sound, fragrance often creates immediate emotional response before conscious analysis fully begins. Some plants even produce compounds resembling the scent of fruit, decay, spice, honey, or fermentation to attract specific insects. Certain orchids imitate fragrances associated with insect mating signals, while some flowers release stronger scent only during brief periods when pollinators remain active nearby. Fragrance serves as specialized according to ecological needs. The plant kingdom contains an astonishing range of aromatic diversity because evolution shaped these chemical systems over long periods. Plants producing successful fragrance strategies reproduced more effectively, while ineffective chemical combinations gradually disappeared. Modern flowers, herbs, trees, and shrubs represent the outcome of many biological adjustments unfolding across generations of environmental pressure and interaction with insects, animals, climate, and ecosystems. Fragrance begins inside plants, though its real journey starts the moment aromatic molecules escape into the air. Once released from flowers, leaves, bark, stems, roots, or glands, these compounds begin drifting away in ways that are almost impossible to observe with human senses. At the center of this movement is evaporation. Volatile fragrance compounds possess the ability to leave the surface of a plant and enter air as tiny airborne molecules. Heat increases this process because warmth adds energy to the molecules themselves, making movement easier and faster. On cool mornings, fragrance often feels faint and close to the source. As sunlight warms the environment, evaporation increases and scent begins spreading more noticeably through the air. A useful comparison is rain falling onto warm pavement during summer. As moisture evaporates, the smell becomes stronger because more compounds are entering the air together. Plant fragrance behaves similarly. Warmth encourages fragrance compounds to rise from plant tissues into the air, where they can travel outward across the environment. This movement does not happen evenly. Fragrance molecules spread according to changing air currents, influenced by temperature, wind, humidity, sunlight, vegetation, and landscape. A gentle breeze moving across a flowering garden may carry scent through nearby open windows, while still evening air can allow fragrance to gather softly around pathways, porches, forests, or riverbanks. Surrounding air itself behaves almost like an invisible ocean filled with slow-moving currents. Heated air rises while cooler air settles lower to the ground. Wind changes direction. Moisture alters density and movement. Trees redirect airflow, while hills, valleys, buildings, and water all influence how scent spreads through the landscape. Fragrance molecules travel through this shifting system. That is why the same flower may smell different depending on conditions. A jasmine vine releasing fragrance during a calm, humid evening may fill an entire garden with scent because the molecules remain concentrated in still air. The same vine during a windy afternoon may smell much lighter because air disperses the fragrance quickly across larger distances. Concentration plays an important role in scent detection. A small number of fragrance molecules drifting through the air may remain unnoticed entirely. As concentration increases, however, scent becomes easier for insects, animals, and humans to detect. This is partly why dense flower gardens often smell much stronger than isolated individual blooms. Larger numbers of flowers release greater amounts of fragrance into the air simultaneously. Distance changes concentration. Molecules remain most concentrated near the source and gradually spread outward over time. The farther scent travels from a flower or herb, the more dispersed the molecules become. Eventually, concentration drops below the level detectable by human senses, yet many insects can still detect these faint chemical traces from remarkable distances. Moths searching for flowers at night provide one of the clearest examples of this sensitivity. Certain species can follow drifting fragrance molecules through darkness using specialized sensory organs able to detecting extremely low concentrations in the air. The insect does not see the flower at first. Instead, it follows an invisible trail of chemistry carried through the air by air currents. Bees rely on similar systems during daylight hours. Flowers release fragrance as chemical guidance signals, while insects respond by moving toward increasing concentration. Scent works together with color, shape, ultraviolet patterns, temperature, and nectar production to guide pollinators efficiently toward reproductive structures inside flowers. Natural environments contain many overlapping scent trails interacting together simultaneously. Pine forests release resin compounds into the air, while flowering shrubs emit floral molecules nearby. Wet soil contributes earthy compounds after rainfall. Grasslands release green aromatic chemicals during heat, while herbs, bark, leaves, moss, water, and microorganisms all add additional layers to the atmospheric mixture. After rain, these scents often become noticeable because moisture changes how compounds move through the air. Humidity can slow dispersion slightly, while damp conditions increase the release of certain molecules from soil and vegetation. Forests after rainfall often feel fragrant because multiple conditions align together. Moisture rises from the ground, while leaves, bark, resin, flowers, moss, and wet earth all contribute compounds into cooler air. Temperature differences between day and night also reshape scent movement. During daylight, warm rising air often carries fragrance upward and outward through the air. After sunset, cooler air settles closer to the ground, allowing scent to remain lower and more concentrated in certain areas. This helps explain why evening gardens often feel more fragrant and enclosed compared to hotter daytime conditions. Valleys and enclosed spaces can trap fragrance well. Cool evening air moving downward into lower landscapes may carry fragrance compounds along with it, allowing scent to gather softly in sheltered areas. Coastal breezes, forest canopies, and even walls surrounding gardens can influence how fragrance behaves over time. The movement of scent through the air is governed partly by randomness as well. Molecules collide with surrounding gas particles while drifting in changing directions. Some travel only short distances before dispersing, while others continue moving farther through favorable air currents. For many plants, fragrance exists for a very practical reason. Scent allows flowers to communicate with pollinators across distance without producing sound or movement. A flower rooted permanently in one location cannot search for insects, yet through chemistry, it can send invisible signals outward into the air, where bees, moths, butterflies, beetles, and other pollinators respond to drifting scent molecules carried by air. This communication system developed gradually over long periods. As flowering plants evolved, many species became increasingly connected with insects able to carrying pollen between flowers. Plants producing successful fragrance signals often reproduced more effectively because pollinators could locate them more easily. Over time, scent became one of the most important communication systems inside many ecosystems. Pollination itself is a delicate process. Pollen contains the reproductive material needed for plants to produce seeds and future generations. Since plants cannot move freely across landscapes, pollen must somehow travel from one flower to another. Wind carries pollen for certain species, especially grasses and trees, though many flowering plants depend heavily on insects instead. Fragrance helps guide those insects toward the correct flowers. Bees provide one of the clearest examples of this relationship. A bee searching for nectar moves through the environment using visual signals, memory, sunlight, and scent together. Flowers release fragrance into the air, while the bee responds to increasing concentration. The insect follows the chemical trail toward the source, much like a traveler, following lights through darkness toward a distant village. Once the bee lands on the flower, pollen grains attach to tiny hairs covering the insect's body. As the bee travels onward to additional flowers searching for nectar, some of that pollen transfers onto new blossoms. The plant benefits because reproduction becomes possible, while the insect benefits by collecting food. Different insects respond to different scents. Some flowers release sweet floral aromas attractive to bees, while others produce heavier nighttime fragrances designed for moths. Certain plants emit sharp or fermented smells, attracting flies or beetles instead. The chemistry released outward often reflects the sensory preferences of specific pollinators. Night-blooming flowers provide especially fascinating examples of this timing system. In darkness, visual signals become less reliable. So many nighttime flowers depend heavily on fragrance. Jasmine, moonflowers, and certain desert blooms release stronger scent after sunset because moths and nocturnal pollinators become active during cooler evening hours. These plants are effectively increasing chemical communication precisely when it becomes most useful. Moths possess highly sensitive sensory organs able to detecting tiny concentrations of fragrance drifting through darkness. Some species can follow scent trails across long distances by adjusting direction according to changing concentration in the air. To human observers, this movement may appear random, though the insect is responding carefully to chemical signals surrounding it. Certain flowers evolve fragrance systems so specialized that only specific insects respond strongly to them. Some orchids even imitate chemical signals associated with insect mating behavior. Male insects attracted by these compounds may attempt to interact with the flower itself, accidentally transferring pollen in the process. The plant does not produce fragrance merely to smell pleasant. It produces highly targeted chemical signals shaped through long biological relationships with particular pollinators. Color, shape, and scent often work together inside flowers rather than separately. Bright petals may attract attention visually during daylight, while fragrance confirms the flower's identity at closer range. Some flowers contain ultraviolet patterns visible to bees but invisible to humans. Others produce warmth within reproductive structures, making them easier for insects to locate. Fragrance serves as part of a larger communication network, combining chemistry, temperature, visual signals, nectar production, and environmental timing. The timing of fragrance release is often carefully coordinated. Certain flowers release stronger scent during specific hours because pollinators follow regular activity patterns. Bees generally remain active during daylight, while moths search for flowers after sunset. Plants adjusting fragrance production according to these schedules increase the likelihood that scent molecules will reach useful organisms rather than dispersing wastefully into empty air. Weather shapes this communication. Wind strength changes how far fragrance travels, while humidity influences concentration and movement. Temperature affects evaporation speed. Rain can dilute scent temporarily, or alter airflow through vegetation. Pollination systems depend partly on atmospheric conditions, carrying chemical signals successfully across landscapes. In dense forests, fragrance may become important because thick vegetation limits visibility. Tropical flowers growing beneath heavy canopy cover often produce strong scent, able to moving through humid air toward pollinators hidden among leaves and branches. In open grasslands, wind may spread fragrance over larger distances. Desert flowers sometimes release powerful scent during brief nighttime blooming periods when cooler temperatures reduce moisture loss. Pollinators themselves learn fragrance patterns over time. Bees can remember the scent of rewarding flowers and return repeatedly to species associated with nectar or pollen. This memory improves efficiency for both the insect and the plant. Fragrance serves as not only a signal, but also part of a learned relationship between organisms sharing the same environment. Fragrance also allows plants to conserve energy efficiently. Producing scent requires resources, sunlight, water, nutrients, and metabolic activity. Releasing fragrance at the correct time and under favorable conditions improves the chance that pollinators will respond successfully. Plants balance energy cost against biological benefit. Some flowers reduce fragrance after pollination has already occurred because attracting additional insects no longer provides significant reproductive advantage. Others increase fragrance during periods of peak fertility. The chemistry released outward changes according to the internal biological condition of the flower itself. Across nature, flowers do not all release fragrance in the same way or together. Some become highly aromatic beneath bright daylight, while others wait until evening before releasing their strongest scent into the air. This timing is not accidental. Plants coordinate fragrance release according to the activity patterns of pollinators, conditions, temperature, moisture, and energy use. The result is an organized system where chemistry, sunlight, insects, and climate work together. Morning gardens often carry a different atmosphere compared to gardens after sunset. During early daylight hours, bees become increasingly active as sunlight warms the environment. Flowers relying heavily on bees frequently release stronger daytime fragrance because their pollinators navigate using both scent and visual signals. Bright petals, ultraviolet patterns, nectar production, and fragrance compounds all combine to guide insects efficiently toward reproductive structures. Many herbs and flowering plants follow this daytime pattern. Lavender growing beneath sunlight releases fragrance steadily through warm afternoons, while rosemary, thyme, basil, and sage often become more aromatic as temperatures rise. Heat increases evaporation, allowing fragrance compounds to spread more effectively through the air. Pollinators searching during daylight hours respond to these signals, while sunlight continues powering photosynthesis inside plants themselves. Day-blooming flowers often display vivid colors alongside fragrance because daytime pollinators can rely heavily on vision. Bees detect ultraviolet patterns invisible to humans, while butterflies respond strongly to color and sunlight. Fragrance strengthens communication, though visual signals remain important during daylight conditions where visibility is high. Even among daytime flowers, timing can vary. Some release fragrance most strongly during early morning, when moisture remains higher and temperatures remain mild. Others peak during warm afternoon conditions, when pollinator activity becomes intense. Environmental coordination allows plants to match scent release with the periods most likely to support successful pollination. As evening approaches, however, air begins changing. Temperatures cool gradually while sunlight fades from gardens, forests, wetlands, deserts, and coastlines. Air movement often becomes calmer after sunset, allowing fragrance molecules to remain more concentrated near flowers. During these quieter nighttime conditions, many plants shift their fragrance production dramatically. Night-blooming flowers provide some of the most powerful fragrance experiences in nature. Jasmine, evening primrose, moonflowers, certain orchids, and desert-blooming plants often release intense aroma after dark because nocturnal pollinators become active during these hours. Moths searching through darkness depend heavily on scent to locate flowers, since visual signals become less reliable at night. Jasmine offers one of the clearest examples of this environmental coordination. During daylight, jasmine fragrance may feel soft and distant. After sunset, however, the plant increases release of fragrance compounds into cooling evening air. Warm floral scent begins spreading across gardens, balconies, pathways, and open windows because the plant evolved alongside nighttime pollinators requiring strong chemical guidance. This timing provides several biological advantages. Cooler nighttime temperatures reduce water loss from delicate flowers, while calmer air allows fragrance to remain concentrated longer near the source. Pollinators searching through darkness can detect scent trails efficiently because atmospheric conditions favor stable fragrance movement. Certain desert flowers follow similar patterns because daytime heat creates dangerous conditions for both flowers and insects. Instead of blooming beneath intense sunlight, these plants open during evening hours when temperatures fall and moisture loss becomes less severe. Fragrance released into cool desert air helps nocturnal pollinators locate flowers across otherwise harsh landscapes. Moonflowers demonstrate another fascinating nighttime strategy. Their pale petals become highly visible beneath moonlight, while strong fragrance spreads through still evening air. Visual brightness and chemical signaling work together to attract moths traveling after dark. The flower coordinates color, timing, scent, and conditions into one organized reproductive system. Environmental coordination extends beyond simple day and night cycles. Seasonal changes also influence fragrance timing. Spring flowers often release scent during periods when pollinators first emerge after colder months, while summer blooming plants synchronize with peak insect activity during warm weather. Climate patterns shape these relationships. Rainfall affects timing as well. Heavy rain can dilute fragrance temporarily or discourage pollinator movement entirely. Some flowers reduce scent release during unfavorable weather because energy would be wasted if insects remain inactive. After rain passes and conditions improve, fragrance production may increase again as pollinators return to the environment. Wind conditions matter greatly too. Strong wind disperses fragrance quickly, reducing concentration near flowers. Calm evenings often produce richer floral atmosphere because molecules remain suspended in stable air rather than scattering rapidly across distance. This helps explain why gardens sometimes feel especially fragrant after sunset, when air movement becomes softer. Humidity creates additional changes in fragrance behavior. Moist evening air may hold scent close to the ground, while dry daytime conditions can spread molecules differently across open landscapes. Plants evolved within these environmental patterns over long periods, gradually synchronizing fragrance release with the atmospheric conditions most useful for reproduction. Pollinators themselves follow daily rhythms shaped by temperature, sunlight, predators, and energy use. Bees warm their bodies using sunlight before beginning active foraging, while moths emerge later during darkness. Certain beetles move during evening hours, while butterflies remain primarily active during daylight. Plants coordinating fragrance release with these schedules improve reproductive success significantly. Some flowers release fragrance only during extremely short periods each day. Others maintain steady scent for much longer. Certain species bloom for only one night before fading entirely after pollination. In tropical forests, desert valleys, coastal wetlands, and mountain meadows, many timing systems operate simultaneously according to the needs of plants and pollinators sharing the same environments. Although fragrance often feels soft and inviting to human senses, many plant scents originally evolved for protection rather than attraction. Across forests, grasslands, wetlands, deserts, and tropical ecosystems, plants face constant pressure from insects, grazing animals, fungi, bacteria, and environmental stress. Since plants cannot run, hide, or physically defend themselves in the way animals can, survival often depends on chemistry. Fragrance serves as part of an invisible defensive system operating inside leaves, stems, bark, flowers, roots, and oils. To people, the scent of rosemary drifting through heated air may feel calming and pleasant. Mint can feel refreshing, while eucalyptus may seem cool and clean. Yet many of these same compounds function differently for insects or herbivores. Strong aromatic chemicals can discourage feeding, interfere with insect behavior, reduce microbial growth, or signal that plant tissues contain compounds difficult or unpleasant to consume. Plants exist within ecosystems filled with organisms searching for food. Insects chew leaves, mammals graze stems, fungi spread through damp surfaces, and microorganisms attempt to break down living tissue. A plant unable to reduce this pressure may lose too much energy or suffer damage severe enough to threaten reproduction and survival. Chemical defense allows plants to respond without movement or direct physical confrontation. Mint provides one of the clearest examples of fragrance functioning as protection. The cooling compounds humans associate with freshness create strong sensory effects for many animals and insects as well. Menthol activates temperature-sensitive systems and produces sensations that some herbivores find unpleasant or overwhelming. The strong fragrance drifting from mint leaves is therefore not decorative. It represents active chemistry, able to influencing the behavior of organisms nearby. Rosemary, thyme, oregano, sage, and many Mediterranean herbs contain concentrated aromatic oils that help reduce damage from insects while also limiting water loss in hot, dry climates. These plants often grow beneath intense sunlight, where moisture remains limited for long periods. Their oils provide multiple biological advantages together. Fragrance, climate adaptation, and defense become connected together through chemistry. Eucalyptus trees produce another powerful defensive system. The sharp resin-like aroma released from eucalyptus leaves comes from compounds stored throughout the plant tissues. Many animals avoid eating large amounts of eucalyptus because the leaves contain chemicals difficult to process safely. Koalas represent one of the few mammals specialized enough to consume eucalyptus regularly, though even they carefully select leaves according to chemical concentration and nutritional condition. Pine forests rely heavily on defensive chemistry as well. Pine resin contains fragrance compounds able to helping protect damaged tissue from insects and microbial invasion. When bark becomes injured, sticky resin may flow outward and harden across the wound. This resin not only seals exposed areas, but also releases powerful fragrance into the air. The fresh scent associated with pine forests partly reflects these protective chemical systems operating inside the trees. Certain plants increase fragrance production after being damaged physically. Crushing leaves, cutting stems, or tearing plant tissue can trigger rapid release of fragrance compounds into the air. Freshly cut grass provides a familiar example. The strong scent released after mowing a lawn comes partly from fragrance compounds escaping damaged plant cells. These compounds may help warn nearby tissues of stress, while also discouraging further feeding from insects or grazing animals. Scientists sometimes refer to these reactions as chemical signaling systems. A plant under attack may release compounds that influence nearby organisms in several ways simultaneously. Some compounds discourage herbivores, while others attract predatory insects, able to feeding on the attacking pests. Fragrance serves as part of a larger biological network connecting plants and insects together through invisible atmospheric chemistry. Certain trees release fragrance compounds after insect damage that attract parasitic wasps or predatory species. The plant cannot remove the threat, though chemistry allows it to influence surrounding ecological relationships in ways that improve survival. In this sense, fragrance serves as both communication and defense operating through the air. Bitter compounds often work alongside fragrance in protective systems. Many aromatic plants contain chemicals that taste unpleasant or become harmful in large amounts. The strong scent serves partly as an early warning signal before feeding even begins. Animals able to learning may begin avoiding particular plants after negative experiences associated with those compounds. Environmental stress can influence defensive chemistry significantly. During drought, intense heat, insect pressure, or nutrient imbalance, certain plants increase production of fragrance compounds. Stress changes metabolism inside living tissues, sometimes leading to stronger fragrance or altered chemical balance. The scent released by plants therefore reflects not only species identity, but also conditions and biological stress. Desert plants frequently depend heavily on aromatic oils because moisture conservation and defense remain critically important in dry climates. Thick coatings, waxy surfaces, concentrated oils, and strong scent all help reduce water loss while discouraging herbivores from damaging valuable tissues. Fragrance serves as part of survival strategy in harsh environments where recovery from damage may require long periods of time. Tropical ecosystems create different pressures entirely. Warm, humid conditions support large insect populations alongside fungi and microorganisms able to spreading rapidly through vegetation. Many tropical plants therefore produce specialized chemical defenses to reduce infection and feeding damage. Some rainforest species contain complex mixtures of compounds functioning simultaneously as deterrents, antimicrobial agents, and environmental signals. Fragrance may also influence competition between plants themselves. Certain species release compounds into surrounding soil or air that affect the growth of nearby vegetation. These chemical interactions can alter ecosystem balance over time by influencing which plants grow successfully within shared environments. People have relied on many of these defensive compounds throughout history without always understanding their original biological purpose. Herbs used for preservation, cleaning, incense, medicine, or storage often contain aromatic chemicals that evolved because they reduce microbial growth or discourage insects. Even dried plants continue releasing fragrance long after harvest because essential oils remain stored within tissues. Bundles of lavender, cedarwood chests, rosemary branches, eucalyptus leaves, and pine resin all continue taking part in atmospheric chemistry after being separated from living ecosystems. The compounds evolved for biological survival, yet continue affecting human environments through scent and sensory experience. Plants may appear still and passive, yet inside their tissues, constant chemical activity allows them to respond to changing conditions. Heat, drought, insect damage, poor soil, flooding, wind, disease, overcrowding, and physical injury all influence the chemistry unfolding within leaves, stems, flowers, bark, and roots. Fragrance often changes alongside these conditions because scent production remains connected to stress, survival, and adaptation inside the plant tissue. Unlike animals, plants cannot escape difficult environments by moving somewhere safer. A tree rooted beside dry soil must endure drought where it stands. A flower facing insect damage cannot walk away from feeding herbivores. Survival depends instead on the ability to adjust chemically and biologically to changing pressure over time. Fragrance serves as one visible sign of these invisible adjustments taking place beneath the surface. One of the clearest examples occurs when plant tissue becomes damaged physically. Crushing leaves between fingers often releases sudden strong fragrance because oil-holding cells break open and expose concentrated fragrance compounds to air. Fresh basil, rosemary, mint, pine needles, lavender, and many herbs behave this way. The sudden burst of scent represents stored chemistry escaping rapidly from damaged tissue. The smell of freshly cut grass offers another familiar example. Lawns release strong green fragrance after mowing because many grass cells have been torn open simultaneously. The compounds entering air belong partly to a group sometimes called green leaf volatiles. These molecules spread through the air almost immediately after injury occurs. Scientists believe these compounds may function partly as warning signals. Nearby tissues within the same plant may respond chemically after detecting damage-related compounds drifting away or internal fluid systems. In some cases, neighboring plants also appear able to responding to these airborne chemical signals by adjusting their own defensive chemistry before damage reaches them. A useful comparison is smoke drifting through a forest before flames become visible. The smoke itself carries information about danger spreading nearby. Plant fragrance can function similarly within ecosystems. Chemical compounds released after damage may indicate insect feeding, environmental stress, drought conditions, or injury occurring somewhere in the surrounding vegetation. Insect attacks frequently trigger these responses. When caterpillars chew leaves, plants often begin releasing different fragrance compounds into the air. Some of these discourage further feeding, while others attract predatory insects, able to attacking the herbivores themselves. The plant responds chemically to the threat, even though it cannot physically defend itself through movement. Corn plants provide a fascinating example of this interaction. Researchers discovered that damaged corn leaves can release compounds attracting parasitic wasps that attack the insects feeding on the plant. The fragrance drifting through the air becomes part of a larger ecological response, involving multiple species connected through the airborne chemistry. Trees also respond chemically to stress. Pine forests experiencing drought, heat, or insect pressure may release different concentrations of fragrance compounds into the air. Eucalyptus forests during hot weather often become fragrant because heat increases evaporation, while conditions influence oil production within leaves and bark. Fragrance reflects both physical climate and biological response happening simultaneously. Drought creates particularly difficult challenges for plants because water supports nearly every internal biological process. During dry periods, many plants adjust metabolism carefully to conserve moisture while maintaining survival. Some reduce fragrance production because producing fragrance compounds requires energy and resources. Others increase certain oils, helping reduce water loss or discourage herbivores from damaging already stressed tissues. Heat also changes fragrance chemistry significantly. Warm temperatures increase evaporation, while intense sunlight alters metabolic activity inside plant cells. Herbs growing beneath strong sunlight often develop concentrated oils because environmental stress shapes chemical production over long periods. The scent drifting from Mediterranean herbs beside dry, rocky hillsides reflects generations of adaptation to hot climates and limited water. Cold weather produces different effects entirely. Lower temperatures slow molecular movement, reduce evaporation, and alter biological activity inside plants. Fragrance may become much weaker during cold conditions because fewer fragrance compounds escape into the air. Some plants enter dormant states during winter, while others continue limited scent production beneath milder climates. Soil conditions influence fragrance as well. Nutrient availability affects plant growth, energy production, and chemical synthesis. A plant growing in rich, balanced soil may produce different fragrance compounds than the same species growing under poor conditions. Minerals, moisture, microorganisms, and root health all shape the chemistry eventually released outward. Even overcrowding creates stress responses. Plants competing heavily for sunlight, water, and nutrients may alter fragrance production according to available resources. Dense vegetation also changes airflow, humidity, and temperature around leaves and flowers, further influencing how scent behaves inside ecosystems. Disease pressure introduces additional chemical responses. Fungi, bacteria, and microorganisms interact with plants across natural environments. Some fragrance compounds help reduce microbial growth, while others increase after infection or tissue damage. The fragrance released by certain plants therefore reflects ongoing interaction with microscopic organisms invisible to human observation. Stress does not always weaken fragrance. In some situations, environmental pressure intensifies aromatic production. Grapevines, herbs, lavender, and other fragrant plants sometimes develop more concentrated oils under moderate stress conditions because protective chemistry becomes important. Farmers and gardeners often notice that plants grown beneath controlled, challenging environments may produce stronger aroma than heavily watered plants growing under softer conditions. Wildfires create dramatic examples of environmental stress shaping plant chemistry. Heat, smoke, drought, and fire damage alter ecosystems on large scales. Certain plants even evolved strategies connected with fire-prone environments. Some species release seeds more successfully after exposure to heat, while others regrow rapidly following fire disturbance. Aromatic oils influencing flammability sometimes play unexpected ecological roles within these systems. Rainfall patterns also influence stress chemistry. Long wet periods may encourage fungal growth, while prolonged dryness increases water pressure within plant tissue. Fragrance shifts subtly alongside these environmental changes. The same forest may smell noticeably different after weeks of rain compared to periods of drought, because atmospheric moisture, soil condition, microbial activity, and plant metabolism have all changed together. Every fragrance produced by a plant begins with energy from sunlight. Beneath the calm appearance of forests, flowers, herbs, trees, grasses, and vines, plants are capturing light and transforming it into chemical energy through photosynthesis. This process powers nearly every biological activity within plant tissue, including growth, repair, reproduction, defense, and the production of fragrance compounds released outward as fragrance. Photosynthesis takes place primarily inside leaves, where specialized structures contain chlorophyll, the green pigment able to absorbing sunlight. When light reaches these cells, plants use that energy to combine water from the soil with carbon dioxide from air. The result is the production of sugars and other energy-rich compounds supporting life throughout the plant. Oxygen is also released back into the air during this process, linking plant biology with air surrounding every ecosystem on Earth. To human observers, sunlight falling across a lavender field or forest canopy may appear beautiful or peaceful. Yet inside plants themselves, large chemical activity is unfolding. Light absorbed during the day becomes stored energy that later supports the creation of essential oils, fragrance compounds, flowers, seeds, bark, roots, and protective chemistry. Fragrance exists because plants successfully convert sunlight into usable chemical resources. This connection explains why light conditions influence scent production so strongly. Many fragrant plants release stronger aroma after long sunny days because photosynthesis provides abundant energy supporting aromatic chemistry. Herbs growing beneath bright sunlight often produce concentrated oils, while flowers exposed to favorable light conditions may release more intense fragrance during blooming periods. Lavender offers an excellent example of this relationship. The familiar aroma associated with lavender fields depends partly on sunlight driving photosynthesis throughout the plant. Warm, bright conditions increase metabolic activity inside leaves and flowers, while evaporation allows fragrance compounds to move into the air. The scent drifting across lavender farms during summer afternoons reflects both stored sunlight and active atmospheric chemistry working together. Metabolism plays an important role in this process. Inside living cells, plants build and transform molecules through interconnected chemical pathways. Sugars produced during photosynthesis become raw materials supporting many biological reactions. Some molecules contribute to growth, while others support defense, repair, reproduction, or fragrance production. Fragrance compounds emerge from these larger metabolic systems operating within plant tissue. A useful comparison is a large city powered by electricity. Energy enters the system and then supports transportation, lighting, communication, manufacturing, and daily activity throughout the city. In plants, sunlight functions as the primary energy source, supporting a large network of biological work. Fragrance production represents only one part of this much larger internal system. Nutrients from the soil are equally important. Plants require minerals such as nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and calcium to maintain healthy metabolism. Roots absorb these nutrients from surrounding soil, while water transports them upward through stems into leaves and flowers. Poor nutrient availability may weaken growth or alter fragrance production because aromatic chemistry depends on healthy cellular function throughout the plant. Soil conditions therefore influence fragrance through energy balance and metabolism. Rich, balanced soil may support stronger flowering and more stable aromatic production, while depleted soil can reduce overall plant health. Gardeners often notice differences in fragrance intensity depending on soil quality, sunlight exposure, watering conditions, and climate. Water itself remains essential for every stage of photosynthesis and metabolic activity. Without adequate moisture, plants struggle to transport nutrients, regulate temperature, maintain cellular pressure, or produce energy efficiently. During drought, fragrance production may decrease in some species because conserving water becomes more important than producing fragrance compounds. Other plants respond differently by concentrating oils more heavily under dry stress conditions. Temperature influences these systems as well. Warm conditions generally increase metabolic speed and evaporation, while cold temperatures slow biological activity. During cool mornings, fragrance compounds may remain trapped more closely within plant tissues. As temperatures rise later in the day, evaporation increases and fragrance spreads more noticeably through the air. Each plant evolved distinct energy strategies according to the environments where they developed over long periods. Desert herbs often produce concentrated oils, helping reduce moisture loss, while tropical flowers may rely on abundant rainfall and warmth, supporting continuous metabolic activity throughout much of the year. Forest plants growing beneath shade must manage limited sunlight carefully, while open grassland species often experience intense direct exposure. Plants can also allocate energy strategically. Fragrance production requires biological investment, so fragrance compounds are often produced most strongly during periods where pollination, defense, or environmental response becomes important. A flowering plant nearing reproductive maturity may increase scent release to attract pollinators, while damaged leaves may redirect energy toward protective compounds, discouraging herbivores. Night-blooming flowers reveal another fascinating balance between energy and timing. During daylight, photosynthesis stores energy within plant tissue. After sunset, some species increase fragrance release dramatically, even though sunlight is no longer available. The energy supporting nighttime scent production was captured earlier during the day and stored chemically within the plant. Human agriculture has interacted with these processes for thousands of years. Farmers cultivating herbs, flowers, tea plants, spices, citrus, or aromatic woods learned gradually that climate and sunlight influence fragrance quality significantly. Lavender grown beneath long sunny summers develops different aromatic character compared to lavender grown under cooler or wetter conditions. Grapes used for wine also develop different aroma compounds according to sunlight exposure, temperature, and soil composition. Modern researchers studying plant chemistry continue discovering how conditions alter aromatic pathways inside living tissues. Small changes in light exposure may influence the balance of compounds produced within flowers or leaves. Stress conditions can activate defensive chemistry, while seasonal cycles shift metabolism throughout the year. No plant exists separately from its environment. Every flower, herb, tree, vine, shrub, and patch of grass responds to the conditions surrounding it. Soil quality, moisture, temperature, rainfall, sunlight, humidity, wind, elevation, and seasonal change all influence how plants grow and how fragrance develops within their tissues. The scent drifting from a garden or forest is therefore not created by the plant alone. It also reflects the climate, landscape, weather, and environmental history shaping the plant throughout its life. Soil forms the foundation of this relationship. Beneath the surface of forests, meadows, deserts, farms, wetlands, and mountains lies a complex living system filled with minerals, moisture, microorganisms, roots, fungi, insects, and decaying organic matter. Plants depend on soil not only for physical support, but also for nutrients and water required for metabolism, growth, and fragrance production. Different soils contain different balances of minerals and organic material. Some remain rich and dark, with high moisture retention, while others feel sandy, rocky, dry, or compacted. These conditions influence root development and nutrient absorption, which in turn shape the chemistry produced inside leaves and flowers. A fragrant herb growing in dry, rocky soil may release stronger concentrated oils than the same species growing in rich, damp conditions because environmental stress alters metabolism and aromatic production. Lavender provides a well-known example of this connection. The plant often thrives in dry, well-drained soils beneath strong sunlight where water remains limited. These harsher conditions encourage concentrated oil production within flowers and leaves. Excessively wet soil may weaken fragrance or damage root systems because lavender evolved within Mediterranean climates shaped by heat, sunlight, and seasonal dryness. Rosemary, thyme, sage, and oregano share similar environmental preferences. Growing naturally in rocky coastal hillsides and warm, dry landscapes, these herbs develop strong aromatic oils, partly as protection against drought and environmental stress. Their fragrance reflects adaptation to climates where conserving water and resisting herbivores became critically important for survival. Water availability shapes fragrance. Plants require moisture for photosynthesis, nutrient transport, temperature regulation, and cellular function. During periods of healthy, balanced hydration, metabolism often supports steady growth and stable fragrance production. Yet excessive water can dilute certain oils or reduce environmental pressure, encouraging aromatic concentration. Drought creates different conditions. When moisture becomes limited, plants must manage resources carefully to survive. Some reduce fragrance production because energy and water conservation become more important than attracting pollinators. Others increase production of protective oils, helping reduce moisture loss or discourage herbivores from damaging already stressed tissues. Climate shapes these relationships over much larger scales. Warm tropical regions support lush vegetation and long-growing seasons where flowers may bloom for extended periods. Humid air influences evaporation and scent movement differently than dry desert climates, where fragrance often spreads rapidly through hot air. Mountain environments create cooler temperatures and thinner atmosphere, while coastal regions experience steady moisture and shifting ocean winds. The same species growing in different climates may smell noticeably different because conditions influence metabolism and aromatic chemistry. Roses cultivated in cool mountain regions can develop fragrance unlike roses grown beneath humid subtropical heat. Citrus fruits produced in Mediterranean climates often carry different aromatic balance than citrus grown under tropical conditions. Climate becomes part of the fragrance itself. Spring often brings increased scent across landscapes because many flowers bloom during periods of active pollination. Rising temperatures and lengthening daylight stimulate growth, while insects emerge in greater numbers after colder months. Blossoming trees, flowering shrubs, herbs, and wildflowers release fragrance into warming air as ecosystems become increasingly active again. Summer intensifies many of these processes. Long daylight hours support abundant photosynthesis, while warmth increases evaporation and air movement of scent molecules. Gardens, forests, meadows, and agricultural fields may become fragrant during hot afternoons and warm evenings because temperature encourages fragrance compounds to spread efficiently through the air. Autumn creates different atmospheric chemistry. Cooler temperatures reduce evaporation, while changing moisture conditions alter soil activity and plant metabolism. Fallen leaves release earthy compounds as decomposition begins, while pine forests, cedar groves, and evergreen vegetation continue contributing resin-based aroma into cooler air. Fragrance shifts alongside seasonal transformation. Winter slows many biological systems considerably, especially in colder climates. Dormant plants reduce growth and metabolic activity, while fewer flowers remain available for pollination. Yet even during winter, forests, bark, evergreen needles, soil microorganisms, and stored plant oils continue releasing subtle fragrance into the air. Nature never becomes chemically silent entirely. Rainfall patterns shape environmental scent strongly as well. Long dry periods create different atmospheric conditions than seasons of regular moisture. Rain itself influences fragrance by wetting soil, cooling surfaces, increasing humidity, and triggering release of compounds from plants and microorganisms. Forests after rain often smell rich and layered because moisture activates many chemical interactions across leaves, bark, roots, moss, fungi, and earth. Wind conditions alter fragrance movement. Open grasslands may carry scent across long distances, while dense forests trap aroma within sheltered air beneath tree canopies. Valleys can collect fragrance during cool evenings, while mountain ridges experience rapid atmospheric dispersal due to stronger air movement. Geography influences how scent behaves after leaving the surface of plants. Elevation creates additional differences. High mountain environments often produce cooler temperatures, stronger sunlight exposure, thinner atmosphere, and shorter growing seasons. Plants adapted to these conditions may produce concentrated fragrance compounds, helping protect against ultraviolet radiation, cold stress, or moisture loss. The fragrance released from alpine herbs often feels sharp and intense because of these environmental pressures. Human agriculture and cultivation practices also shape fragrance production. Farmers managing irrigation, sunlight exposure, pruning, spacing, soil nutrients, and harvest timing influence the chemistry developing within crops. Tea leaves, lavender flowers, herbs, roses, citrus fruits, spices, and aromatic woods all respond to cultivation conditions, affecting final fragrance quality. Fragrance may drift freely through the air once released, though before that happens, fragrance compounds must first be produced, stored, protected, and managed inside the plant tissue. Essential oils do not appear at random across leaves or flowers. Plants rely on specialized storage systems able to containing concentrated fragrance compounds safely within tissues until release becomes useful or necessary. These oils are often stored inside microscopic structures too small to notice without magnification. Some plants contain tiny oil glands across the surface of leaves or flower petals, while others keep fragrance compounds sealed within internal pockets, tubes, resin canals, or specialized cells buried deeper inside stems, bark, roots, or fruit peels. Every fragrant plant manages storage slightly differently, according to its environment, biology, and survival strategy. Lavender provides one of the clearest examples of visible oil storage. Tiny gland-like structures cover the flowers and upper stems, producing and containing aromatic oils, rich in fragrance compounds. Under magnification, the surface of the plant appears filled with small reservoirs designed specifically for fragrance production and release. Warm sunlight gradually increases evaporation from these structures, allowing scent molecules to drift outward into the air. Mint leaves use a similar system. Across the surface of peppermint and spearmint leaves are microscopic oil glands filled with menthol-rich compounds. Crushing the leaf physically breaks these structures open, releasing concentrated fragrance immediately into the air. The sudden burst of scent comes from oils that had been safely contained within protective tissue moments earlier. Citrus fruits manage fragrance compounds differently. Inside the peel of oranges, lemons, limes, and grapefruits exist numerous small oil pockets filled with volatile molecules. Pressing or twisting the peel ruptures these storage structures and sends tiny droplets of fragrant oil outward into the air. Even a single orange peel can release enough fragrance compounds to fill an entire room with scent because the oils remain highly concentrated inside the fruit surface. Pine trees rely heavily on resin canals running through bark, needles, and wood. These channels transport sticky aromatic resin throughout the tree while also helping protect against injury and insects. When bark becomes damaged, resin may flow outward across the wound while releasing strong fragrance into the air. The fresh scent associated with pine forests partly reflects these resin systems operating across vast numbers of trees. Eucalyptus leaves contain specialized oil glands distributed throughout the tissues themselves. During warm weather, evaporation from these oils contributes to the sharp cooling fragrance often associated with eucalyptus groves. Heat increases movement of fragrance compounds from storage structures into the air, while the plant continues producing additional aromatic chemistry internally. Flowers frequently concentrate fragrance production near reproductive structures, where pollinator interaction becomes most important. Petals, nectar-producing tissues, and nearby glands may release fragrance compounds strategically to guide insects toward pollen and nectar. Certain flowers contain fragrance-producing cells clustered densely around the center of the bloom, because scent concentration improves pollinator attraction. Storage systems must protect plants from their own chemistry as well. Many fragrance compounds become highly concentrated inside oils and could damage delicate cellular structures if released improperly within tissues. Specialized compartments allow plants to separate fragrance compounds safely until conditions favor controlled release into the air. A useful comparison is storing strong spices or concentrated cleaning compounds inside sealed containers within a kitchen. Without proper separation, the materials could spread too widely or interact with surrounding surfaces unintentionally. Plants face similar challenges internally. Fragrance compounds require careful biological management to remain useful without harming the tissues producing them. Different plants evolve distinct storage systems according to environmental pressure and biological need. Desert shrubs often develop thick protective tissues, helping reduce evaporation and moisture loss, while tropical flowers may prioritize rapid fragrance release into humid air for pollinator attraction. Conifer trees storing resin inside wood face different environmental demands than delicate flowering herbs growing in open fields. Even within a single plant, fragrance compounds may be distributed unevenly. Flowers often contain stronger fragrance than stems because attracting pollinators becomes important during blooming. Roots, bark, seeds, leaves, and fruit may each store different compounds serving different biological functions. A citrus tree, for example, may release different aroma from flowers, leaves, bark, and fruit peel because each tissue type supports different ecological roles. Storage structures also influence how long fragrance remains noticeable after release. Oils evaporating gradually from protected glands may create soft, continuous aroma over long periods, while sudden rupture of oil-holding tissue produces intense, short bursts of scent. This difference explains why brushing lightly past lavender creates gentle fragrance, while crushing herbs between fingers produces immediate, concentrated aroma. People have interacted with these storage systems for thousands of years through cooking, medicine, agriculture, incense, preservation, and perfume making. Crushing herbs, peeling citrus, distilling flowers, cutting cedar wood, collecting pine resin, or drying lavender all involve releasing fragrance compounds stored naturally within plant tissues. The scents filling kitchens, gardens, markets, temples, and homes across human history originated from these hidden biological structures. Essential oil extraction itself depends on understanding where plants store fragrance. Steam distillation, pressing, soaking, and other methods attempt to separate fragrance compounds from leaves, flowers, bark, roots, or fruit tissues where the oils naturally accumulate. Yet even modern extraction methods only imitate processes plants developed biologically long before human civilization existed. One of the easiest ways to experience plant chemistry is to crush a leaf between your fingers. Almost immediately, fragrance spreads into the air with surprising strength. Mint releases cool, sharp aroma. Rosemary produces woody herbal scent. Basil becomes sweet and fresh, while lavender fills the air with soft floral oils. This sudden release feels simple, though inside the plant, it involves specialized structures breaking open and exposing concentrated fragrance compounds to air. Before physical contact occurs, many fragrance molecules remain sealed safely inside small storage systems within leaves, flowers, stems, bark, or fruit peels. Tiny oil glands, resin canals, oil pockets, and specialized cells contain these compounds in concentrated form. When tissue becomes damaged through pressure, cutting, tearing, grazing, weather, or insect feeding, those structures rupture and release volatile molecules into the air almost immediately. Mint leaves provide one of the clearest examples of this process. Across the surface of the leaf exist many tiny oil glands filled with menthol-rich compounds. Under normal conditions, the oils remain mostly enclosed within protective tissue. Crushing the leaf breaks the glands open, allowing aromatic molecules to evaporate rapidly into the air. The strong burst of scent comes not from creating new fragrance instantly, but from releasing compounds that were already stored inside the plant. Basil behaves similarly. Fresh basil leaves contain aromatic oils responsible for the sweet herbal scent associated with cooking and gardens during summer. Chopping or tearing the leaves increases fragrance dramatically because oil-holding parts rupture across the surface. Heat from fingers, sunlight, or cooking further increases evaporation, spreading fragrance compounds through air. Rosemary and thyme use thick oil, rich leaves adapted partly for dry climates and environmental stress. Their concentrated aromatic systems help reduce water loss while also discouraging herbivores and insects. Crushing these herbs releases fragrance strongly because the oils remain highly concentrated inside protective plant tissue designed to conserve moisture beneath hot sunlight. Citrus fruits contain some of the most dramatic examples of physical fragrance release. Twisting an orange or lemon peel sends tiny droplets of aromatic oil outward into the air because pressure ruptures numerous oil pockets embedded within the outer skin. The sudden wave of citrus scent filling a room represents concentrated fragrance compounds evaporating rapidly after storage structures break open. Pine trees respond similarly through resin systems distributed across bark and wood. Breaking a pine needle or cutting into fresh wood releases sharp resin fragrance because fragrance compounds stored inside resin canals become exposed to air. After storms, fallen branches and damaged bark often increase the scent of pine forests because injury releases additional resin into the environment. Freshly cut grass provides another familiar example. The strong green scent appearing after mowing lawns comes from many damaged plant cells releasing fragrance compounds simultaneously. As blades tear through grass, aromatic molecules escape from ruptured tissues and spread rapidly through air. Surrounding air becomes temporarily filled with compounds, signaling injury and environmental stress within the vegetation. Surface glands play an important role in many aromatic plants. These structures often appear as tiny rounded formations across leaves, stems, or petals. Some remain visible only under magnification, while others can create slightly textured surfaces noticeable by touch. Inside these glands, oils accumulate gradually until evaporation or physical disturbance releases compounds into the air. Lavender flowers contain large numbers of these tiny oil-producing structures concentrated heavily around flowering tissues. Warm weather increases evaporation from the glands, creating the recognizable fragrance drifting across lavender fields during summer. Brushing lightly against the flowers releases additional oils because contact disturbs surface tissues. Certain flowers release fragrance through thin petal surfaces, rather than concentrated oil pockets alone. Fragrance compounds move outward gradually as evaporation carries volatile molecules into the air. Heat, humidity, airflow, and pollinator activity all influence how efficiently this release occurs. Structural design affects fragrance movement significantly. Thin, delicate petals often allow rapid evaporation, while thick, waxy leaves slow moisture loss and regulate aromatic release more carefully. Desert plants frequently develop protective coatings, helping manage evaporation under dry conditions, while tropical flowers adapted to humid climates may release fragrance more freely into moisture-rich air. Essential oil extraction methods often imitate these natural release systems. Distillation, pressing, soaking, and heating all attempt to separate fragrance compounds from storage tissues where plants originally contained them. Even simple acts such as rubbing rosemary between fingers recreate processes occurring naturally during wind, rain, insect feeding, or environmental disturbance. Inside forests, gardens, orchards, meadows, and fields, many release systems are operating. Leaves bend in wind, flowers warm beneath sunlight, bark cracks during weather changes, insects feed on vegetation, and animals brush through plants, while fragrance molecules escape steadily into the air. For fragrance to become part of human experience, scent molecules must eventually leave air and enter the body itself. Every breath drawn through the nose carries airborne compounds into narrow passages lined with specialized sensory tissue, able to detecting chemical information with strong sensitivity. What begins as invisible plant chemistry drifting through forests, gardens, fields, rain, flowers, bark, and herbs eventually becomes sensation, memory, recognition, and emotion inside the human brain. Most people rarely think about breathing as a form of chemical detection, yet this process is happening throughout the day. Air entering the nose contains more than oxygen alone. Tiny particles, moisture, temperature changes, and many microscopic molecules move inward with each breath. Among them are fragrance compounds released from flowers, leaves, wood, soil, rain, fruit, herbs, smoke, ocean air, and surrounding ecosystems. Inside the upper portion of the nasal cavity lies a small region known as the olfactory epithelium. This specialized tissue contains millions of sensory receptor cells designed specifically to detect airborne chemical compounds. The area itself is relatively small compared to the rest of the respiratory system, yet its sensitivity allows people to recognize a wide variety of scents, from extremely small concentrations of molecules drifting through the air. A useful comparison is keys fitting into locks. Different fragrance molecules possess distinct shapes and chemical properties, while receptor cells respond selectively according to those characteristics. When certain molecules enter the nose, they interact with matching receptors able to recognizing specific patterns. This interaction begins the process of transforming airborne chemistry into electrical signals traveling toward the brain. No single receptor identifies an entire fragrance by itself. Instead, different molecules activate combinations of receptors simultaneously. The brain interprets these complex activation patterns as recognizable scent experiences. Lavender, pine, rosemary, citrus, jasmine, rain-soaked soil, cedar wood, and ocean air each produce distinct combinations of signals depending on the compounds involved. Concentration affects perception strongly. A very small number of molecules may produce faint, subtle scent, while higher concentrations create much stronger sensory experience. Distance from the source matters, because fragrance molecules disperse gradually as they move through the air. A lavender field nearby may smell rich and intense, while the same scent drifting from far away becomes soft and barely noticeable. Once receptor cells detect fragrance molecules, electrical signals travel through the olfactory nerve toward the brain. There, specialized regions begin processing the information rapidly. One fascinating feature of smell is its close relationship with areas connected to memory and emotion. Fragrance often creates emotional response almost immediately, sometimes before conscious analysis fully begins. This connection helps explain why scent can trigger vivid memories so powerfully. The smell of pine may recall winter holidays or mountain forests. Lavender might remind someone of childhood gardens or quiet evenings. Fresh basil may connect with cooking, summer meals, or family gatherings. Rain-soaked soil can evoke memories of changing seasons, distant places, or particular moments from years earlier. Scientists believe smell becomes strongly linked with memory because olfactory pathways connect closely with brain regions involved in emotional processing and long-term memory formation. Unlike many other sensory experiences, fragrance often feels immediate and deeply personal. A familiar scent may transport attention toward past experiences almost instantly. Different people perceive fragrance differently because sensory sensitivity varies between individuals. One person may detect floral sweetness strongly, while another notices herbal sharpness more clearly. Genetic differences influence receptor sensitivity, while personal experiences shape emotional interpretation. Culture, environment, memory, and familiarity all contribute to how fragrance feels psychologically. Certain compounds create physical sensations beyond scent alone. Menthol from peppermint activates receptors associated with coolness, while compounds from chili peppers stimulate heat-related sensory pathways. Eucalyptus may feel sharp and refreshing, while pine resin creates crisp, cool impressions connected partly to airflow and sensory response rather than fragrance alone. The human brain also adapts quickly to continuous scent exposure. Entering a fragrant garden may create strong awareness immediately, though after several minutes the scent often feels less noticeable, despite fragrance remaining present in the air. This process, sometimes called olfactory adaptation, allows sensory systems to remain responsive to new or changing environmental information, instead of focusing on stable background scent. Natural fragrance may feel calming because human sensory systems evolved within ecosystems filled with plant chemistry for long periods. Forests, flowers, herbs, rainfall, grasslands, coastlines, and trees surrounded human ancestors long before industrial environments existed. The scent of lavender, cedar, pine, rosemary, jasmine, or wet earth therefore interacts with sensory systems shaped across deep biological history. Few sensory experiences feel as immediate and emotional as fragrance. A familiar scent drifting through the air can change mood within seconds, revive memories from many years earlier, or create sudden feelings of comfort, calm, nostalgia, warmth, or familiarity before conscious thought fully catches up with the experience. The smell of lavender beside an evening window, rain falling onto dry earth, pine forests during cold weather, or rosemary warming beneath sunlight often carries emotional weight far beyond the chemical compounds themselves. Part of this response comes from the close connection between smell, memory, and emotional processing inside the human brain. Unlike many other senses, fragrance pathways interact with regions involved in emotion and long-term memory. Because of this relationship, scent often triggers memories quickly and vividly. A single fragrance may reconnect someone with childhood gardens, family kitchens, holidays, forests, distant travel, or quiet moments from decades earlier. These memories do not always appear as complete, clear scenes. Sometimes fragrance creates emotional atmosphere without specific details. The smell of cedar wood may produce calm familiarity, even when a person cannot identify exactly why. Fresh herbs might create comfort, linked unconsciously to cooking or home environments. Jasmine drifting through warm evening air may evoke feelings of stillness and nighttime quiet, even without direct memory attached. Scientists sometimes describe this effect as associative learning. During life, the brain links sensory experiences with emotions, locations, events, and conditions. When those same fragrance molecules appear again later, the sensory pathways connected to previous experiences become active once more. Scent therefore functions partly as a chemical bridge connecting present experience with stored emotional memory. A useful comparison is hearing a familiar piece of music after many years. Certain songs can instantly return attention towards specific periods of life because sound became emotionally linked with memory during earlier experiences. Fragrance behaves similarly, though often even more and unexpectedly because smell interacts so closely with emotional processing systems inside the brain. Individual variation plays an important role in this process. No two people experience fragrance in exactly the same way, because memory, biology, environment, and sensory sensitivity differ between individuals. One person may associate lavender with relaxation and sleep, while another connects it with gardens from childhood summers. Pine fragrance may remind someone of mountain forests, while another person thinks immediately of winter holidays or old wooden houses. Cultural background also shapes fragrance perception. Certain herbs, spices, flowers, woods, or oils become connected with food, ceremonies, medicine, religion, seasonal traditions, or family life within different societies. Fragrance, therefore, carries layers of emotional meaning, shaped partly by human culture, alongside biology. Concentration changes emotional response significantly as well. Soft, subtle fragrance may feel calming, while extremely strong concentration becomes overwhelming or uncomfortable. A faint lavender scent drifting through still air often feels relaxing, because the sensory experience remains balanced and gradual. Excessively concentrated fragrance, however, may overstimulate perception and reduce comfort instead. Environmental context influences emotional interpretation too. Pine fragrance inside cool mountain, the air feels different from pine scent, trapped inside crowded urban heat. Jasmine drifting through a quiet garden at night creates different emotional atmosphere than the same fragrance inside busy surroundings. Temperature, light, silence, weather, and environment all interact with scent perception simultaneously. Rain provides one of the clearest examples of this environmental layering. The smell associated with rainfall often combines moisture, soil chemistry, vegetation, microorganisms, cooling air, and changing atmospheric conditions together into one unified sensory experience. Many people describe the scent of rain as calming or peaceful, because the entire environmental system surrounding the fragrance contributes to emotional interpretation. Natural fragrance often differs psychologically from artificial scent, because ecosystems produce highly complex mixtures of compounds changing over time. Forest air, flowering gardens, herbs, soil, bark, rain, and coastal wind contain many subtle layers interacting together. Artificial fragrances may imitate dominant compounds successfully, though natural environments usually remain more chemically varied and dynamic. Nighttime frequently intensifies emotional connection with fragrance because visual distractions become reduced after sunset. During quiet evenings, scent may feel more noticeable and immersive as attention shifts towards softer sensory details. Jasmine, lavender, pine, wet earth, cedar, rosemary, and flowering gardens often seem richer after dark because cooler, calmer conditions allow fragrance to remain concentrated in still air. Fragrance is never completely fixed inside nature. The scent released by a flower, herb, tree, or forest changes gradually over time as plants grow, mature, reproduce, age, and respond to shifting conditions. A young, unopened flower may produce little fragrance at all, while the same bloom several days later can fill air with strong aroma before fading again as the plant moves into later stages of development. The chemistry drifting through gardens and ecosystems is changing alongside the life cycle of the plants themselves. As plants mature, metabolism becomes increasingly complex. Leaves expand, stems strengthen, root systems spread deeper into surrounding soil, and energy production through photosynthesis increases steadily. Fragrance compounds may begin appearing more strongly as specialized tissues develop within leaves, flowers, bark, or fruit. Fragrance grows gradually alongside the biological maturity of the plant. Herbs provide clear examples of these changing aromatic stages. Young basil plants often smell softer and less concentrated than mature plants growing beneath full sunlight later in the season. Rosemary, lavender, thyme, and mint similarly develop stronger fragrance as oil-producing glands increase, and environmental exposure shapes chemical production over time. Flowering introduces another major shift in fragrance chemistry. Before blooms fully open, fragrance compounds may remain limited because attracting pollinators is not yet biologically necessary. As flowers mature toward reproductive readiness, fragrance production often increases dramatically. The plant begins releasing stronger scent into the air precisely when pollinator activity becomes most important. Jasmine offers one of the most noticeable examples of fragrance changing with maturity. Newly opened flowers may release relatively soft scent at first, though fragrance often deepens and strengthens as blooming progresses. During peak maturity, air surrounding the plant may become filled with rich floral aroma before gradually fading as the flower ages and reproductive activity declines. Roses behave similarly. Fresh, unopened buds usually smell faint compared to fully mature blooms where fragrance compounds reach peak concentration. After pollination or aging, fragrance often weakens again because the flower begins shifting energy away from attracting insects and towards seed development or tissue decline. This constant chemical adjustment allows plants to manage energy efficiently. Producing fragrance requires metabolic resources, sunlight, nutrients, and water. Plants therefore increase aromatic production most strongly during periods where biological benefit remains highest. Once pollination succeeds or flowering ends, maintaining intense fragrance may no longer provide significant reproductive advantage. Plant age influences fragrance on much larger scales as well. Young trees may release different aromatic balance than mature forests because bark thickness, resin production, root systems, environmental stress, and overall metabolism change throughout long lifespans. Pine forests decades old often smell different from newly planted groves because biological maturity alters the chemistry entering air. Lavender fields also evolve chemically across growing seasons. Younger plants may produce lighter aroma, while mature established lavender develops more concentrated oils over time. Climate exposure, sunlight, soil condition, pruning, drought cycles, and plant age all shape fragrance gradually year after year. Seasonal development creates additional variation. Spring growth often produces fresh green aroma associated with new leaves and active metabolism, while late summer herbs may release stronger oils after long exposure to heat and sunlight. Autumn introduces earthy compounds connected to drying vegetation, ripening fruit, bark, and decomposition. Fragrance shifts alongside seasonal biology. Environmental stress interacts with these developmental stages. Drought, insect pressure, nutrient availability, heat, rainfall, and temperature fluctuations may strengthen or weaken aromatic production, depending on the species involved. A mature herb growing under moderate stress may produce concentrated fragrance, while excessive environmental pressure eventually reduces overall plant health and scent output. Fruit trees provide another excellent example of dynamic fragrance chemistry. Citrus blossoms release powerful floral scent during pollination periods, while ripening fruit later develops different fragrance compounds within the peel and flesh. The same tree therefore contributes changing fragrance to air across different phases of growth and reproduction. Leaves themselves also change chemically with age. Young leaves often remain softer and less chemically defended than mature leaves containing concentrated oils or protective compounds. As tissues harden and environmental exposure increases, fragrance chemistry may shift gradually in response to sunlight, insects, temperature, and moisture conditions. Certain flowers even change fragrance throughout a single day. Morning blooms may smell light and fresh, while evening conditions produce deeper, richer aroma because temperature, humidity, pollinator activity, and metabolic timing all fluctuate. Fragrance serves as part of a living dynamic system rather than a static permanent trait. Human agriculture has depended on understanding these timing patterns for thousands of years. Farmers harvesting herbs, tea leaves, flowers, spices, grapes, or aromatic woods learned gradually that timing strongly influences fragrance quality. Harvesting lavender too early or too late changes oil concentration. Picking basil during cooler hours preserves aroma differently than harvesting beneath intense midday heat. Developmental stage shapes chemistry. Modern plant science continues revealing how complicated these changes truly are. Tiny adjustments in metabolism during flowering, aging, stress response, pollination, or seasonal transition can alter fragrance noticeably. Even genetically identical plants grown under slightly different conditions may develop distinct aromatic character over time. Temperature affects fragrance more strongly than almost any other environmental factor. Warmth increases molecular movement, both within plant tissue and throughout the air. As temperatures rise, fragrance compounds evaporate more rapidly from leaves, flowers, bark, herbs, and resin. More molecules enter air together, increasing scent intensity and allowing fragrance to travel farther across the landscape. That is why gardens often smell strongest during warm afternoons or mild summer evenings. Sunlight heats flowers and leaves throughout the day, while evaporation steadily releases fragrance compounds into the air. Lavender fields beneath summer warmth may produce rich rolling fragrance drifting across entire hillsides, because temperature supports continuous evaporation from millions of tiny oil glands at once. Cooler temperatures create different conditions. During early morning hours, fragrance may feel softer, fresher, and closer to the plant because evaporation slows significantly. Molecules remain less active in cooler air and spread more gradually through the air. The same rosemary bush that smells intense beneath afternoon heat may produce only subtle fragrance before sunrise. Morning air often contains higher humidity as well. Overnight cooling allows moisture to gather across leaves, soil, flowers, and grass, while dew forms beneath calm atmospheric conditions. Humid air changes how fragrance moves by slowing dispersion slightly and helping scent remain concentrated closer to the ground. This can create soft, layered aroma across gardens and forests during quiet morning hours. As sunlight rises higher, dew evaporates, and atmospheric circulation increases. Heated air begins rising, while cooler air shifts and mixes across landscapes. Fragrance disperses differently under these changing conditions. Some scents become stronger because evaporation increases, while others fade more quickly into the air due to stronger air movement. Humidity itself changes fragrance perception in complex ways. Moist air can make floral scents feel heavier, softer, or more enveloping because water vapor influences how aromatic molecules spread and interact with the human nose. Dry air often creates sharper, cleaner scent movement where fragrance disperses rapidly and feels lighter or less concentrated. This difference becomes noticeable during summer evenings after rain. Humidity remains elevated while temperatures cool gradually and air movement slows. Floral fragrance may seem unusually rich because atmospheric conditions allow scent to gather near flowers rather than dispersing rapidly into the distance. Jasmine, gardenia, roses, and many evening blooming plants become noticeable during these calm, humid conditions. Desert climates create nearly opposite effects. Dry air and intense daytime heat encourage rapid evaporation and wide atmospheric dispersal. Certain desert flowers therefore release strongest fragrance during nighttime hours when temperatures fall and moisture loss becomes less dangerous. Evening air in desert environments often carries scent far because cooler, calmer conditions improve fragrance stability. Wind reshapes all of these atmospheric patterns. A still garden may hold concentrated fragrance near flowers, while strong wind spreads molecules quickly across open distance. Forests often trap scent beneath dense canopies, where air movement remains slower compared to exposed coastlines or mountain ridges experiencing constant circulation. Geography influences these atmospheric interactions as well. Valleys can collect cool, fragrant air after sunset, while hillsides experience stronger airflow and faster dispersal. Coastal environments combine moisture, salt air, shifting temperature, and ocean breeze into highly dynamic scent conditions. Pine forests in mountain regions often smell sharp and crisp because cool, dry air alters how resin compounds move through the air. Seasonal cycles reshape fragrance on even larger scales. Spring introduces warming temperatures, increasing daylight, fresh growth, and expanding pollinator activity. Blossoming trees and flowers release fragrance into cool, moist air, where scent often feels delicate, yet vivid after long winter dormancy. Summer intensifies evaporation and atmospheric chemistry across entire ecosystems. Herbs, flowers, forests, grasses, and fruiting plants release large amounts of fragrance compounds into heated air, while pollinators remain highly active. Evening fragrance during summer often feels especially rich because heat accumulated throughout the day continues driving evaporation even after sunlight fades. Autumn changes atmospheric conditions gradually through cooling temperatures, shorter daylight hours, shifting moisture, and slowing plant metabolism. Floral fragrance serves as less dominant in many regions, while earthy compounds from leaves, bark, soil, fungi, and decaying vegetation become increasingly noticeable. Forest air changes chemically as ecosystems prepare for colder seasons. Winter reduces fragrance activity across many climates because cold temperatures slow evaporation and biological work. Yet evergreen forests, cedar wood, pine resin, damp soil, and certain winter flowering plants continue contributing aroma into the air even during colder months. Fragrance never disappears entirely from nature. It changes according to seasonal conditions. Rainfall alters scent movement dramatically as well. Before storms arrive, humidity and air pressure shifts may influence fragrance concentration noticeably. During rain, moisture washes particles from air while cooling surfaces and wetting vegetation. After rainfall ends, forests and gardens often release powerful earthy fragrance because soil compounds, wet bark, leaves, moss, and plant oils interact with fresh, cooler air simultaneously. Even the human body responds differently to fragrance according to atmospheric conditions. Warm, humid evenings may increase sensory awareness of floral aroma, while cold, dry air reduces intensity. Breathing patterns, skin moisture, airflow, and environmental comfort all influence how scent feels psychologically and physically. Most of these signals remain unnoticed by human senses because concentration often stays extremely low, or because the compounds themselves fall outside normal human perception. Yet for many organisms, scent provides continuous environmental information about food, danger, reproduction, weather conditions, territory, injury, moisture, or changing biological activity nearby. Plants participate actively in this network, despite remaining rooted permanently in place. Fragrance allows them to influence surrounding organisms without movement or sound. Pollinators follow floral scent toward nectar, while herbivores avoid certain defensive compounds drifting from leaves or bark. Insects searching for mates, predators hunting prey, and microorganisms responding to damaged vegetation all interact with airborne chemistry moving through ecosystems. Flowers releasing fragrance into heated air provide only one part of this larger system. Trees damaged by insects may release compounds attracting predatory species able to attacking the herbivores feeding on them. Nearby plants sometimes respond to these same airborne chemicals by increasing their own defensive chemistry before direct damage occurs. Fragrance, therefore, becomes not only communication between plants and insects, but also communication between plants themselves. Scientists studying forests discovered that certain trees alter chemical production after detecting stress-related compounds drifting from neighboring vegetation. A tree under insect attack may release fragrance compounds into the air, while nearby trees begin strengthening defensive systems in response. Surrounding air carries warning signals through the ecosystem long before physical damage spreads between plants. Microorganisms contribute to these atmospheric systems as well. Soil bacteria and fungi release compounds influencing root growth, decomposition, moisture cycles, and plant health. After rainfall, earthy fragrance rising from forests and grasslands partly reflects microbial activity responding to changing moisture conditions. Surrounding air above ecosystems therefore contains chemistry from both plants and microscopic life forms hidden beneath the soil surface. Insects rely heavily on scent communication across nearly every stage of life. Bees identify flowers partly through fragrance, while moths follow drifting scent through darkness toward nectar sources or potential mates. Ants leave chemical trails guiding colony movement. Certain beetles locate damaged trees through compounds released from stressed bark and resin. For many insects, airborne chemistry functions almost like a map, layered invisibly across the environment. Predators also use scent signals extensively. Wolves, foxes, bears, rodents, and smaller animals interpret environmental fragrance while searching for food, avoiding danger, or recognizing territory. Even birds respond to scent more than people once believed. Seabirds traveling long distances across oceans may detect chemical traces associated with plankton-rich feeding zones carried upward through marine air. Ocean ecosystems contain their own atmospheric chemistry systems, connected partly with marine microorganisms and algae. Coastal air often smells different from inland environments because salt, moisture, vegetation, ocean compounds, and marine biological activity all contribute molecules into the air. People experience these changes emotionally, while ecosystems respond biologically to the same atmospheric chemistry. Rainforests perhaps demonstrate the greatest complexity of all. Dense vegetation, heavy humidity, rich soil, constant biological activity, insects, fungi, flowers, fruit, and decomposition all contribute many fragrance compounds into the air simultaneously. Fragrance moves through layered vegetation, where organisms rely heavily on airborne chemical information because visibility often remains limited beneath thick canopy cover. Environmental disruption can alter these communication systems significantly. Pollution, habitat destruction, climate shifts, drought, and temperature changes may interfere with fragrance movement or reduce the ability of pollinators and plants to interact successfully. Airborne compounds disperse differently under changing atmospheric conditions, while ecosystems themselves become chemically altered over time. Climate change may already be influencing these relationships in some regions. Rising temperatures alter flowering cycles, while shifting rainfall patterns change air movement and plant stress responses. Pollinators, depending on seasonal fragrance signals, may encounter changing timing between blooming periods and insect activity. The chemistry moving through ecosystems responds to environmental instability. The fragrance drifting through forests, gardens, coastlines, meadows, deserts, and flowering fields today represents the result of biological systems shaped over long evolutionary history. Long before humans noticed the calming scent of lavender or the freshness of pine forests after rain, plants were already developing chemical strategies that improve survival, reproduction, protection, and communication within changing ecosystems. Fragrance became part of a much larger process where life adjusted to climate, insects, predators, environmental stress, and atmospheric conditions across millions of years. Plants faced large challenges throughout this history. Unlike animals, they could not migrate quickly when conditions changed or escape from danger through movement. Survival depended on developing highly effective biological systems able to functioning while rooted permanently in place. Chemistry became one of the most powerful tools available. Through fragrance compounds, plants influenced pollinators, discouraged herbivores, protected damaged tissue, communicated stress, and interacted with surrounding organisms through the air. Over time, plants producing useful fragrance systems often reproduced more successfully than plants lacking those advantages. Flowers attracting pollinators efficiently spread genetic material more reliably across landscapes. Defensive compounds reducing insect damage improved survival. Aromatic oils limiting water loss helped plants endure harsh climates. Gradually, generation after generation, fragrance systems became increasingly refined through environmental pressure and biological selection. A useful comparison is language developing slowly within human civilization. Early forms become more organized and effective over long periods as communication improves. Fragrance evolved in a somewhat similar way. Surrounding air became filled with increasingly specialized chemical signals, shaped through many interactions between plants, insects, climate, and ecosystems. Pollinators influence this process largely. Bees, moths, butterflies, beetles, birds, and other species responded differently to fragrance, color, timing, and flower structure. Plants attracting useful pollinators more effectively produced more seeds and future generations. Insects, meanwhile, benefited from locating reliable nectar and pollen sources efficiently. Both sides shaped each other gradually through long biological relationships, unfolding over long periods. Night-blooming flowers offer especially clear examples of this coordination. Plants releasing fragrance after sunset evolved alongside nocturnal pollinators, relying heavily on scent within darkness. Strong evening aroma improved pollination success, while insects able to detecting faint fragrance gained access to food sources unavailable to less sensitive competitors. Over generations, these relationships became increasingly specialized. Certain orchids developed fragrance resembling insect mating signals, while some desert flowers synchronized blooming with brief seasonal periods when pollinators remained active. Forest plants growing beneath dense canopy relied heavily on scent because visual communication became limited within darker environments. Every ecosystem gradually shaped fragrance systems according to local environmental pressures and biological relationships. Defense also influenced long-term fragrance evolution strongly. Plants facing intense grazing pressure or insect attack often developed fragrance compounds, discouraging feeding or reducing microbial growth. Herbs rich in oils such as rosemary, thyme, sage, mint, and oregano survive particularly well in harsh, dry climates because concentrated chemistry provided multiple advantages simultaneously. Fragrance, moisture conservation, protection, and environmental adaptation became interconnected through evolution. Pine forests demonstrate another form of long-term chemical strategy. Resin systems protecting bark and wood against insects, fungi, and physical injury developed gradually across ancient conifer lineages, surviving large environmental change over geological time. The fresh scent associated with pine forests today reflects defensive chemistry shaped through long biological history. Climate shifts repeatedly influenced fragrance systems across Earth's history as well. Periods of warming, cooling, drought, rainfall change, glaciation, and ecosystem transformation forced plants to adjust chemically to new conditions. Species unable to adapt often disappeared, while successful aromatic strategies spread across surviving populations. Modern fragrance systems therefore carry traces of ancient environmental pressure embedded within plant biology itself. People eventually became part of these systems too. Early humans moving through forests, grasslands, wetlands, and coastal environments encountered aromatic plants. Fragrance helped identify food, water, medicine, fire, weather changes, seasons, and safe environments long before written language existed. Certain scents became associated unconsciously with survival, comfort, and environmental familiarity. Over thousands of years, human cultures began intentionally cultivating aromatic plants for food, ritual, preservation, medicine, trade, and atmosphere. Lavender, frankincense, cedar, cinnamon, rosemary, jasmine, rose, pine resin, citrus, mint, and many other fragrant materials became woven into daily life across civilizations. Yet even during this long cultural history, the original biological functions of fragrance remained active inside plants themselves. Modern agriculture and horticulture continue shaping fragrance systems today. Humans selectively breed flowers, herbs, fruits, and aromatic plants according to scent strength, flavor, appearance, and environmental tolerance. Some cultivated flowers now produce less fragrance than wild relatives because visual appearance became prioritized during breeding. Others have been selected specifically for strong aroma in perfume or culinary use. Despite human influence, natural ecosystems still operate according to the same biological coordination shaping fragrance for long periods. Pollinators continue following scent trails through the air. Plants respond chemically to stress, climate, insects, rainfall, and seasonal cycles. Forests release fragrance compounds into the air, while flowers synchronize fragrance with conditions and reproductive timing. Ecosystem balance depends partly on these invisible atmospheric interactions remaining stable. Pollination systems support food production and plant reproduction, while defensive chemistry influences herbivore populations and microbial activity. Fragrance contributes to ecological relationships extending across forests, wetlands, grasslands, deserts, mountains, and coastal regions all over the planet. Even atmospheric chemistry itself connects with plant fragrance on large scales. Forests release large quantities of fragrance compounds into the air each year, influencing cloud formation, moisture cycles, and conditions. The scent drifting from trees and vegetation therefore participates not only in local ecosystems, but also in larger atmospheric systems affecting climate and weather patterns. This process begins with sunlight. Plants absorb light through photosynthesis and convert that energy into the chemical resources needed for growth, repair, reproduction, defense, and fragrance production. Fragrance compounds emerge from these living metabolic systems powered by sunlight. Heat then increases evaporation, allowing volatile molecules to drift outward through the air, where insects, animals, microorganisms, neighboring plants, and people respond to chemistry carried through the air. For pollinators, fragrance serves as guidance. Bees follow floral scent toward nectar, while moths move through darkness, responding to drifting molecules released by night-blooming flowers. For plants facing herbivores or environmental stress, fragrance compounds become defense, warning signals, and protective chemistry, helping improve survival in changing conditions. For ecosystems as a whole, fragrance serves as part of a vast atmospheric communication system, linking organisms together through the airborne chemical information. People experience these systems emotionally as well as physically. Fragrance enters the nose as volatile molecules and becomes electrical signals traveling toward regions of the brain closely connected with memory, emotion, atmosphere, and sensory interpretation. A familiar scent may recall places, seasons, people, forests, gardens, rainfall, or moments from many years earlier, because smell interacts so deeply with emotional memory inside the human mind. This connection explains why natural fragrance often feels calming or deeply familiar. Human sensory systems evolved within ecosystems filled with plant chemistry long before modern civilization existed. Forest air, flowers, herbs, rain-soaked soil, cedar wood, ocean wind, pine resin, and seasonal vegetation surrounded human life across long periods. Surrounding air itself carried biological information, shaping awareness of weather, water, food, safety, climate, and environmental change. Even now, modern life remains connected to these ancient atmospheric systems. Herbs, warming during cooking release, compounds plants originally developed for defense and survival. Lavender oils used for relaxation began as protective chemistry inside flowering tissues. Pine fragrance drifting through forests after rain reflects resin systems shaped through immense environmental pressure across evolutionary history. Tonight, we explored fragrance not as perfume or pleasant scent, but as a living biological language shaped by sunlight, climate, survival, chemistry, reproduction, ecosystem balance, and air movement. Nature speaks through molecules carried through the air, linking forests, flowers, insects, rain, seasons, and human perception together into one connected system unfolding across the earth itself. Thank you for listening to the Sleepy Mind channel.